Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to Copper Jacket TV. So we've got something very important to talk about. The big news of the day is that the military has been authorized to use lethal force against U.S. citizens, and this comes from a DoD directive, specifically Directive 5240.01. We're going to go over that directive. We're going to talk about exactly what it says, what it is supposed to be for, and we're going to talk about whether or not the military would actually do that, if this is something that you think they would do, because I've heard from some people that they just don't think they'll cross that line. So let's talk about what's going on here. Now, before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about today's sponsor, which is Delete Me. Delete Me is an amazing service that will allow you to get your online privacy back. Believe it or not, there are data brokerage sites out there whose sole focus it is to gather, sell, and distribute your personal data. So what is Delete Me and how does it help? Well, Delete Me is a company that cares about your personal privacy, and so what they do is they collect your information and they scour the internet and search those data brokerage sites to remove your personal information. Now, I personally have a Delete Me account. As a matter of fact, I've been using their services since December of 2023. And in that time, they have scanned 111,056 listings and removed my information from 44 different brokers. Now, one of my favorite things to do with my Delete Me account is actually check out the online dashboard. From there, you will find all of the relevant information that you need, from the number of listings that were scanned, how many times your information popped up on a data brokerage site, what type of information popped up, from your age, your address, your name. It will break everything down for you so that you can see how Delete Me is working effectively for you. So if your online privacy is important to you like it is to me, make sure you join Delete Me. You can use the link down below to save 20% or use the discount code COPPERJACKET. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about what's going on here. And before we talk about whether or not the military would actually go along with something like this, let's take a look at the DoD directive itself, talk a little bit about it. It's kind of a long directive. It names lists of priorities, implementation, the people who are responsible for implementation, people who would be connected to it, and there's a lot going on here. It's not just a 1 or 2 page document. There's something like 20 plus pages. So this is a very long document to go through. If you guys are interested, I'll put a link to it down below. But it's definitely worth reading and keeping up on stuff like this, because again, this is stuff that comes directly from the top. So here it is right here. This is DoD Directive 5240.01. It is the DoD Intelligence and Intelligence-Related Activities and Defense Intelligence Component assistance to law enforcement agencies and other civil authorities, and the originating component is the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. You can see the date there, September 27th, 2024. So you can see right here, it says this issuance implements paragraph 2.6 of Executive Order 12333 as amended, except as otherwise specified in this issuance. This issuance applies to all defense intelligence components when providing intelligence assistance to law enforcement agencies or other civil authorities. This issuance does not apply to activities conducted by the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency pursuant to Section 42, Title 10 U.S.C., humanitarian assistance, disaster readiness, response recovery, maritime and aeronautical safety of navigation, environmental and security vulnerability studies, mapping, charting, and geodetic missions. So this is the part that has everybody concerned, because this is what can be provided by the DoD in terms of personnel and materials to assist local law enforcement or other agencies against U.S. citizens. It says, assistance in responding with assets with the potential for lethality or any situation in which it is reasonably foreseeable that providing the requested assistance may involve the use of force that is likely to result in lethal force, including death or serious bodily injury. It also includes all support to civilian law enforcement officials in situations where a confrontation between civilian law enforcement and civilian individuals or groups is reasonably anticipated. Such use of force must be in accordance with DoD 5210.56, potentially as further restricted based on the specifics of the requested support. provision or use of DoD unmanned systems in the United States except as delegated by the Secretary of Defense pursuant to October 31st, 2023 Secretary of Defense memorandum. So again, we're talking about military personnel, we're talking about equipment, and even unmanned equipment here. Now, they say they're going to do this within the constraints of the U.S. Constitution, but if you believe that, I should let you know that I give free unicorn rides out back. Now, it says that right here in policy, it's actually paragraph A, DoD intelligence and intelligence-related activities will be conducted in accordance with this issuance. Applicable laws, EOs, including EO 12333, as amended, presidential directives, DoD D5148.13, Secretary of Defense Memorandum, and other DoD policies and DoD Manual 5240.01, special emphasis will be given to the protection of the constitutional rights and privacy of U.S. persons. Now, what they're talking about there in terms of privacy is that in this memorandum, it says that they can assist with the collection of data on people that are involved in certain situations, and that they won't directly collect data of U.S. citizens unless it is somehow part of the collection that is required for whatever it is that they're trying to get. So basically, if you get caught up in it, if you get rolled up in this, then your data will be collected. It's very similar to like the Patriot Act, right? Where they might be collecting data on somebody else, but then your data inadvertently is part of that, and so they can collect that as well. So that's kind of what's happening here, is that they're going to be collecting data and surveillance, things like that, and they just want to say that they're not going to do it on people that are not directly involved, but those people who may be indirectly involved might still get caught up. This thing's a whole mess. Now, interestingly enough, I've had talks like this with people in the past where you talk about whether or not the military would actually use force against civilians, you know, regular Americans. And the answer that I get is really interesting. There's some people who just think that it won't happen. If that order was ever given, or they were ever faced with a situation where they would actually have to go face to face with American citizens, they think that the military would just simply back off. And I can assure you, from talking to people that I know in the military, that is not the case. That might be the case for some. There's some people whose moral compass will point them in the right direction. And then there's other people who don't have a moral compass. They have an agenda, and they would be perfectly fine with it. I'll tell you right now, they would just be gung-ho with it. As a matter of fact, I bet you there's some people that are just waiting for something like that to happen. But saying that it outright wouldn't happen is a fallacy. All we have to do is simply look back in history. If you ignore history, then you might be wondering what could happen with this. If you are somebody who embraces history and takes a look back, I guess you consider even recent history. Just take a look back at recent history. You can see that that is not the case, and the military would 100% go along with something like this. Now, I wholeheartedly support our military, 100%. Those men and women who stood in line, who volunteered, knowing that one day they may have to make that ultimate sacrifice. You know, sacrifices like staying away from your family for long periods of times, missing birthdays and holidays, you know, and all the stuff that they have to go through in order to do a job that a lot of people just won't do. A lot of people who wouldn't volunteer to do, they're the ones that are out there doing it, and I support them for that. But you know what? You one day might be faced with a dilemma, a very serious dilemma, and you might want to hash that shit out now so you know exactly where you're at. So this is, to me, very concerning that they would put something out there like this. I mean, it may be in support of local law enforcement. It may be in support of some other agency. And so if it comes down to it, maybe, you know, just things might be stretched thin for whatever reason. But I think we all know why this is happening and why this is coming down. And this is definitely a moment for self-reflection to figure out exactly how we got to this point, because a memorandum like this, I don't think was necessary in the past. But now all of a sudden it's coming out. I just think it's something worth talking about, and I wanted to share that with you. So I want to thank you all very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Please like, subscribe. You guys have a great day.